Thank you, Sally, for being here with me. Usually we spend all our time talking on like WhatsApp video when you're in Lebanon and I'm here, and now you're here at Yale. So I know the main reason you're here is to attend the Yale World Fellows reunion this weekend, but as your best friend in the whole world, I'm just so excited that I get to spend 4 days with you and that you get to come hang out with my students and me this afternoon. So thank you again. So the reason I want to have the last and final campus conversation with you is that this module is about expansion. And so it's all about, like, everyone wants to make a huge difference, and some people want to start something new, but at the end of the day, no matter how great your idea is, it's not just you that's going to make these big changes. You have to grow beyond the walls of your organization, and you have to think about like how you can partner with others and use your work as a platform to contribute to change that's much bigger than you. And so I know that your work has spanned like actual social enterprise and also policy and advocacy and a whole bunch of other grassroots NGO work. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what are some of the different ways that social entrepreneurs can use their work as a platform to contribute to policy and advocacy.
So a few thoughts from me, and obviously I'm speaking from my experience that it's solely based in the Middle East. So it's a very specific context, but some of these learnings would apply to other contexts in other regions, but obviously you always have to be contextually sensitive. So specifically in the Middle East, in certain countries, in Lebanon, for example, we don't have legal frameworks for what is called social entrepreneurship or social enterprises. So you have to adopt specific frameworks either for the private sector or NGO work to be able to have a legal entity to operate. But that does impact your scalability and how you make impact because you're bound by frameworks that don't actually make sense for your own entity. So one way to make change, and that's happened in Lebanon and is happening at the time, is to coordinate and cooperate and engage and work with like-minded people and organizations to really push the system to adopt some form of policy change or legal framework that makes sense for what entrepreneurship is in Lebanon, for example, and make that a legally bound framework that all enterprises can operate. That not only offers you protection, but it also gives you the ability to think within a specific legal framework, a protective framework on how you want to make impact, how you want to scale, and what that means for you and enterprises within the context that you're trying to influence specifically. And when it comes to policy and advocacy, it's really about, there's a lot of power in numbers. And so the best approach in such a scenario, not just for, if you're trying to influence policy within entrepreneurship, but in general, is to have critical mass. And to do that, you need to network, you need to cross-fertilize, you need to really be connected to people who are thinking like you, who want to, sort of make an impact like you, who see, or those who just see value in that particular work. They might not be in the same, field necessarily, but see the value in your field and want to support you. And only then can you really sort of be able to apply the necessary pressures with particular stakeholders to start a conversation around, okay, what does a formal policy or legal framework look like? How can we make that happen? And start that dialogue and debate, because it takes a really, really long time. So patience is extremely important in such a scenario, and you need to be in it for the long haul.
And I think another thing that you said really resonates about, like, you've got to be in this for the long haul, because this is, whatever change you're working on is probably going to take longer than you or your organization.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like people come in and out, but the movement goes. And so you have to be you have to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, and it's not about you as an individual. you know, one person isn't ever going to be able to make that transformative change that we're looking for. You know, and it's about, you know, each individual contributing what they can, or each entity or enterprise contributing to what you can, and somehow, because although you're all unique, but you become more than the sum of your parts, and be able to, because it's about system transformation, right? And like no one person can transform.
Yeah. The whole has to be greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
And also another distinction I want to make is that a lot of entrepreneurs or even intrapreneurs think of growth and expansion as growing the organization, right? Like, now I'm going to make more money, I'm going to hire more people, I'm going to reach more end users. But that's one thing that definitely helps you grow your impact. But then actually thinking about expanding your impact, what I'm trying to get at in this module is growing beyond your organization. Like, yeah, you can grow your work, but that's not the same as growing your impact. And sometimes in order to grow your impact, you have to look beyond your organization, and the two are not mutually exclusive. You can do them at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I think for me at least, it's about looking at it from what kind of, you know, sort of just society or just economic model do you want to be a part of. And so within that space, therefore, you know, you focus on you know, your own entity and how you succeed in making that a successful entity, and one that is sustainable and then grows. And then, but yet that is part of a wider context for you to transform that, like, you know, just economic or social model that you envision.
Yeah, and I love the example you gave about how in Lebanon, if I understood it correctly, it's like, yeah, different people are trying to build different social enterprises, but also they're all trying to come together to build a social enterprise sector and advocating for new legal forms and frameworks that enable social entrepreneurship. And that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. And that's specifically important for, you know, social enterprises, because one of, you know, sort of the risks in operating in an environment that maybe doesn't give you that type of, you know, legal framework or legal protection is you fall into the trap of either being just an NGO, and then therefore operates like an
donor
NGO, donor dependent, and you know, just becoming like a charitable organization, so to speak, and focus on the service delivery component, but not so much, you know, less on the transformation. Maybe if you have enough funds to do that. Or, you know, to operating like, you know, purely a private sector enterprise, which, you know, also removes the social from the enterprise if you do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. One of my colleagues here at Yale says that a lot of people want to be superstars, but in order to create true social change, you have to be part of a constellation. And I love that, because what you were saying earlier about like find the like-minded people. It's like you can be so much bigger if you're a small dot that's part of a big constellation than if you're trying to outshine others.
Absolutely. But I did say like-minded people, and that's especially necessary if you're working on specific, you know, policy changes and you're advocating for specific policy asks. But at the same time, it's also important to be able to talk to and discuss and debate with non-like-minded individuals as well. Because, you know, we don't also want to only be preaching to the choir, especially when it comes to advocacy. It's important that we're able to message, you know, to people and individuals that don't speak the same language as us, or don't understand the concepts that we're trying, you know, to pass on, but we're able to bring them on board, right? We're able to convince them of the value of what we bring and why this specific sort of policy ask or policy framework is important. So we want to be surrounded by the like-minded, but we all need to be singing the same song, as we say, and speaking the same language to be able to convince, you know, whoever it is, you know, we're trying to advocate towards, of, you know, what we bring to the table and why this is such an important mission to do that. Is also equally important.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because you have to build bridges and break boundaries, otherwise you're not going to change the status quo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I've been like witnessing your really impactful career for 25 years, and I'm really curious about what advice you have to give to students in terms of any limitations or pitfalls that you would want them to look out for when practicing social entrepreneurship and social change in general.
Patience is key, and always hang on to the idealism that you have when you first enter it. The world is getting much scarier by the day, that sense of idealism is, towards, a better world is what's going to keep you going, and to keep fighting that good fight. So patience and idealism, that that hope that the world can be better and keep getting better, don't fall into the traps of frustration or despair. And I think self-care is also very important, because you're going to have you're going to be working very hard. And you're fighting the good fight, and that comes with its own also frustrations and emotional drainage. So just take care of yourself while doing it, and never sort of underestimate your own contribution and your power.
Thank you for helping me circle back to the main point of the course that we started with, in terms of thinking beyond your venture and your own endeavor and being part of something bigger than yourself to create true social change.
You're welcome.